Chosen people, you are not normal. Not everyone can understand you. You have a divine gift of the universe inside you, which makes you stand out from the crowd of thousands. You must have seen people appreciate extraordinary people only when they are gone from their lives. Now imagine they are sweating on your social media, thinking how they lost such a precious relationship. But the truth is that they did not just lose you, but also underestimated your potential. They thought they understood you well, but now they are sitting in the rubble of their wrong decisions, wondering how they let the biggest blessing of their life slip away. Their first mistake was to consider your calmness as a weakness. They thought that your being calm, avoiding useless fights, and letting things go is a sign of your helplessness. But the truth was far from it. Your calmness was your biggest strength. It showed that you were in complete control over yourself. You knew when to keep quiet, when to speak, and when to save your energy. But their ego misunderstood it. They didn't know that your silence was just a strategy. They kept thinking that you were not seeing their moves, but you were seeing. You were just not willing to stoop to their level. And then came the moment they crossed their line, and you peacefully distanced yourself. No anger, no revenge, just distance. And then they realized what they have lost. Now they are living without you, cut off from your energy and the world. Now they understand that your silence was not a weakness, but a warning that they ignored. To uncover the truth of why your existence is rewriting the rules and why they want to reconnect with your energy. Before getting into this deep transformation, you can give your feedback to the universe by commenting 999. And if you are not connected to the energy of this channel, you can join by subscribing to the channel. And if you want to become a special member of the channel, you can take membership from the join button. Recognizing the unique gift within you, you are not like everyone else. From the moment you were born, you were chosen by the universe to stand apart. Within you lies a divine gift, an extraordinary power that sets you apart from the crowd. This gift can be seen in your calmness, your resilience, and the way you navigate life with a unique perspective that others fail to understand. Those who don't recognize it often misinterpret it, taking it for granted. But the universe has placed this energy in you to change the world, not to be understood by everyone. The undervalued presence in their lives. Many times in life, people fail to truly appreciate the blessings they have until they are no longer a part of their lives. It's a painful truth, one that we all experience at some point. Often, the value of someone or something only becomes apparent after it's lost, leaving behind a hollow feeling of regret. You were one of those blessings in someone's life, though they didn't recognize it until you were gone. In fact, your presence was a gift to them, one that they failed to honor or cherish when they had it. It's not uncommon for people to become complacent or take things for granted when they are constantly available. They might have seen you there for them through thick and thin, offering emotional support, providing a listening ear, and sometimes just being a calming presence when everything else felt like it was falling apart. You might have been the one to lift them up when they were feeling low, giving them strength when they had none left, or simply offering words of comfort when the world felt too heavy. You were always there, ready to offer a hand, a hug, or a word of encouragement when they needed it the most. But despite all the times you showed up for them, there were moments when they didn't recognize the value of your presence. They might have thought that you would always be there, so they didn't feel the need to express their gratitude. You became a constant in their lives, and like many constants, they may have become accustomed to it, even taking it for granted. They didn't fully appreciate how much you were giving, how much emotional labor you were putting into the relationship, and how much your energy helped balance theirs. Sometimes, People only notice what they had when it's no longer there. When you stopped being present in their lives, when you chose to step back and create distance, that's when they began to realize the magnitude of what they had lost. They may have mistaken your silence for indifference, thinking that you didn't care enough to fight for the relationship or to make a fuss when things went wrong. But the truth is, your decision to walk away wasn't a lack of caring. It was a recognition of your worth. You stopped giving because you realized that your presence was being undervalued. You weren't going to keep pouring energy into something that didn't appreciate the value you brought to the table. You weren't asking for constant praise, but just the simple acknowledgement that you were there, that you mattered, and that your contributions to the relationship were important. Now that you've distanced yourself, they are left with an emptiness that wasn't there before. The absence of your energy, your wisdom, your support. Suddenly, they find themselves alone, grappling with the consequences of their actions. They now understand the magnitude of their mistake, the preciousness of what they took for granted, and the depth of your presence in their lives. They are left to wonder how they didn't see it earlier, how they allowed something so valuable to slip through their fingers without ever truly recognizing it. The lesson here is not just about the value of your presence, but also about how often people fail to realize what they have until it's too late. Your worth isn't determined by how others see you or how they treat you. It's important to remember that you are a blessing, whether or not they understand it. Your absence will echo through their lives, and though they may never fully understand the depth of what they lost, it will change them. It's a painful realization for them, but it's also a reminder of the importance of not taking people for granted. The time to appreciate the ones you love and the ones who care for you is always now, not when they are gone. Mistaking calmness for weakness. One of their biggest mistakes was interpreting your calm nature as a sign of weakness. They thought your quiet demeanor meant that you didn't have the strength to stand up for yourself, not realizing that your silence was a form of self-mastery. It's an unfortunate reality that some people mistake calmness for weakness. They look at someone who is quiet and composed in the face of adversity and assume that they lack the strength to speak up, to fight back, or to assert themselves. They see someone who doesn't engage in drama or react impulsively, and they wrongly interpret that as a sign of being passive or submissive. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Calmness is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it is often the exact opposite. It's a sign of self-mastery, of wisdom, and of strength. When you choose to remain calm in the face of conflict, you aren't doing so because you're afraid of confrontation or because you don't have the courage to speak your mind. It's not about passivity or giving in to others. Your calmness is a conscious choice, a decision to maintain control over your emotions and reactions. You've learned through experience that not every situation requires a dramatic response or an argument. Sometimes the best way to handle a conflict is not by adding fuel to the fire, but by stepping back, taking a breath, and refusing to engage in unnecessary drama. People who misinterpret calmness as weakness fail to understand the strength it takes to remain composed when everything around you is chaotic. It's easy to get swept up in anger or frustration and let emotions dictate your behavior. But to stay calm, to hold your ground without letting emotions run wild, is a true form of emotional intelligence. It's knowing that, in many situations, reacting in anger or haste only escalates the problem, whereas silence, patience, and careful consideration can lead to much more powerful outcomes. The truth is that silence isn't always about not having something to say. It's about knowing when to speak and when it's better to hold back. It's about understanding that sometimes your words won't change anything, and that some conflicts are not worth your time and energy. When you choose to stay silent, it's a way of protecting your peace, of conserving your energy for matters that truly deserve your attention. And while others may interpret your silence as a sign of weakness, it is in fact a sign that you have the strength to not be controlled by your emotions. Your calmness is a form of self-mastery. It comes from a deep understanding of yourself and the situation at hand. You know that not everything needs to be confronted head-on, and you've learned how to pick your battles wisely. You don't waste your time on trivial conflicts or people who are not worth your emotional investment. When others see your composure and assume you are weak, they fail to recognize the depth of your inner strength. You don't need to shout to be heard, and you don't need to react to every provocation. You have the wisdom to understand that silence can speak louder than any words. The people who mistake your calm for weakness are the ones who are often ruled by their own emotions, who feel the need to assert themselves in every situation. They think that reacting immediately or raising their voice is the only way to make an impact. But the truth is, they are the ones who lack control. They are the ones who allow their emotions to dictate their actions. Your calmness shows that you have transcended this need for constant validation or drama. You've learned that sometimes the greatest strength lies in saying nothing at all and letting your presence and composure speak for themselves. Those who misunderstand your calmness will eventually learn, though it may be too late. They will realize that your silence wasn't a weakness. It was a sign of your wisdom and emotional strength. It was your way of maintaining control over yourself and not allowing their chaos to become yours. The power of emotional control. Emotional control is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal, though many people may not fully understand its significance. It's often assumed that someone who doesn't outwardly express their emotions is cold or detached, but the truth is far more profound. You are not immune to feelings. You experience anger, frustration, sadness, and fear just like anyone else. However, the key difference is that you've learned to master them rather than allowing them to control you. This ability to remain composed, especially when faced with challenges, is a testament to your inner strength and emotional intelligence. While others might lash out in frustration, make impulsive decisions driven by anger, or let jealousy cloud their judgment, you stand firm. Your emotional responses are not knee-jerk reactions to every situation. Instead, you have developed the ability to step back, take a deep breath, and consider the best course of action before responding. This doesn't mean that you suppress your emotions or pretend they don't exist. Rather, you've learned to understand them, to observe them, and to decide how you want to respond in a way that aligns with your values and goals. When you don't allow your emotions to dictate your actions, you gain control over your energy. Emotional reactions are draining. They consume your mental and physical resources, leaving you feeling exhausted, frustrated, or even regretful once the storm of emotions has passed. You understand this, which is why you choose to preserve your energy for things that truly matter, things that align with your growth, your happiness, and your peace of mind. It's not that you don't feel the same emotional triggers that others do. It's that you've learned to channel your energy in a more intentional way. This is a lesson that many people learn too late. In the heat of the moment, when emotions are running high, it can feel natural to react instantly, to shout, to fight back, to express frustration. But while this might feel like releasing pressure in the short term, it often leads to regret or unnecessary conflict. When people act on impulse, they end up wasting their energy on things that don't deserve it. The emotional aftermath can leave them feeling empty, drained, or even ashamed of their actions. You've learned this the hard way, and over time, you've found that holding back your reactions brings you much more peace and clarity. By choosing emotional control, you are not avoiding your feelings. You are allowing yourself the space to process them. You recognize that reacting impulsively often leads to more damage than good. Instead of giving into anger, frustration, or resentment, you take a step back and reflect. This process of reflection allows you to approach situations with a clearer mind and a more grounded perspective. You ask yourself, what is the most constructive way to respond, rather than allowing emotions to dictate a reaction you might regret later? This ability to remain calm under pressure doesn't go unnoticed, even if people may not immediately understand it. They might mistake your composed demeanor for indifference or lack of passion, not realizing that it takes immense strength to maintain such poise. It's easy to let emotions control us. It's much harder to be the one who stays grounded when the storm around you is raging. This is your superpower, the ability to be in control of yourself, to stay focused, and to conserve your energy for what really matters. And though others may not see the value of this until it's too late, it is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and it's a path to true emotional freedom. The moment they cross the line, there comes a moment in every relationship, whether it's with a friend, family member, or partner, when things go too far. Up until that point, you've been patient, understanding, and forgiving. You've given people the benefit of the doubt, allowing their mistakes to slide because you saw the bigger picture. You understood that people are flawed and that everyone has their own struggles, their own challenges that sometimes affect the way they behave. You were willing to be there for them, to offer grace and understanding, because you believed in the potential for growth, for change, and for healing. But there is a point when enough is enough. There is a moment when someone's actions cross a line, and it's no longer just a simple mistake. It becomes a matter of disrespect, a violation of boundaries that can no longer be ignored. It's not something that happens suddenly or out of nowhere. It's the accumulation of small moments, small decisions, and small actions that gradually build up to a breaking point. You allowed their behavior to go unchecked for as long as you could, trying to be understanding, trying to make things work. But there comes a time when you realize that continuing to tolerate disrespect is no longer healthy for you, no longer beneficial to anyone involved. The moment they crossed that line, it wasn't just a slap in the face, it was the end of a chapter. It wasn't an act of revenge or an outburst of anger. It was a quiet decision made out of wisdom to step away from the situation. You didn't need to retaliate. You didn't need to shout, argue, or escalate things further. You simply distanced yourself. In that silence, in that decision to walk away, there was more power than any argument could have provided. It was a statement, one that communicated that you had reached the end of your rope, that you no longer had the energy to give to a relationship that didn't value you. And in that moment, when you walked away, they saw the consequences of their actions. It hit them hard, and they realized, perhaps for the first time, the gravity of what they had done. It wasn't just about the mistake they made or the words they said. It was about how they had taken you for granted, how they had underestimated your strength and your ability to endure. They thought that you would always be there, that you would always forgive them, that you would always tolerate their behavior. They miscalculated. They failed to understand that there are lines that cannot be crossed, that there is a point where your patience runs out. Walking away wasn't about being cold-hearted or punishing them. It was about preserving your peace. It was about respecting yourself enough to know when it was time to let go. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to walk away without saying a word. They may never fully understand why you left, but you knew, deep down, that it was the only choice left. And while they were left to grapple with the consequences of their actions, you were already moving forward, choosing peace over pain, wisdom over conflict, and self-respect over tolerating disrespect. In the end, they underestimated you. They didn't realize that your ability to walk away, to distance yourself without making a scene, was a reflection of your strength, your self-respect, and your understanding of what truly matters. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was the most powerful decision you could make for yourself. The shock of losing you. It's a hard truth to swallow, but the reality is that many people don't truly recognize the value of what they have until it's gone. It's only in the absence of someone like you that they begin to see the full scope of what you brought to their lives. When you were there, you were more than just a presence in the room. You were the quiet force that helped bring clarity during confusion, the calm that soothed chaos, and the energy that filled any space with light. People might have been so used to having you around that they never truly stopped to appreciate the depth of your impact. But once you're no longer there, the emptiness left behind is undeniable. They start to realize just how much your energy used to light up a room. It wasn't just your smile or your words. It was something deeper, something that resonated with them on a level they couldn't fully comprehend until it was missing. You were the person who made others feel seen, heard, and understood. Your presence had a way of calming their nerves, offering insight when they were lost, and providing strength when they felt weak. When things were tough, you were the one who helped them navigate the storm, giving them a sense of direction and hope. You didn't demand attention or validation. You simply gave, and people took it for granted. Now, without you, the contrast is stark. They begin to feel the void where once your presence filled the gaps. The room feels quieter, the days feel longer, and the decisions they once relied on your wisdom for now seem harder to make. The conversations feel emptier, and the support they once had is no longer available. The energy that you so effortlessly gave has now dissipated, leaving them with a sense of loss they didn't expect. What they're realizing now, often too late, is that you were never just an ordinary person in their life. You were a connection to something greater, a bridge between their own potential and the world around them. Your wisdom, your insights, and your ability to see things from a broader perspective were gifts that they didn't fully value when they had them. They thought they could live without you, that they could go on without recognizing the significance of your contributions. But now, in your absence, they see the truth. They see that they've lost something irreplaceable, and the weight of that loss is heavy. It's not just the practical things that are gone, it's the feeling of security, the comfort of knowing that someone had their back, and the reassurance that they had someone in their corner who believed in them, even when they couldn't believe in themselves. The realization that they took you for granted, that they didn't see you for the blessing you were, hits them hard. They are left with the consequences of their actions, the aftermath of their decisions, and the painful understanding that they let something precious slip through their fingers. This moment of realization is often accompanied by regret. They begin to look back at all the times they overlooked your contributions or took your presence for granted, wishing they could turn back time and appreciate you more fully. But by the time they come to this understanding, it's too late. You've already moved on, and they are left to deal with the emptiness that remains. The shock of losing you is profound, and it changes everything for them. They now see you for who you truly were, and they understand, perhaps for the first time, the blessing they had in their lives. But while they may come to this realization, the truth remains. You were their connection to something greater, and now they are left to deal with the consequences of their own choices. Understanding your silence. There is a profound power in silence, one that many fail to fully appreciate until it's too late. For so long, your silence was seen as passive, something that others could easily overlook or misinterpret. They might have thought you were just retreating, withdrawing from the situation out of weakness or indecision. But in reality, your silence was far from passive. It was a powerful statement, one that carried a depth of meaning that they failed to understand at the time. It wasn't a retreat, it was a deliberate choice, a way of communicating something without the need for words. Your silence wasn't a sign of weakness, nor was it an indication that you didn't have anything to say. In fact, your silence was a warning, a message that they simply chose to ignore. You were not silent because you didn't have the strength to speak up or defend yourself. You were silent because you understood that some things are better said through actions, not words. You knew that sometimes saying less is more powerful than saying anything at all. You didn't need to escalate the situation or get caught up in pointless arguments. Your silence was a sign of control, an indication that you had a deeper understanding of the situation than they did. When people are in conflict, their instinct is often to react, to shout, to argue, to prove a point. But you weren't interested in any of that. You knew that fighting fire with fire only creates more chaos. You understood that the best way to handle a situation wasn't by adding to the noise, but by stepping back and remaining calm. And in doing so, you sent a message that was loud and clear, even though it wasn't spoken aloud. You showed them that you were capable of much more, that you were fully aware of the dynamics at play, and that you had no intention of lowering yourself to their level. The truth is, your silence was the calm before the storm. It wasn't the absence of action, it was a build-up of energy, a moment of quiet before the inevitable shift. You chose not to react immediately, knowing that eventually the situation would reveal itself. You didn't need to explain yourself, didn't need to defend your boundaries or stand up for your worth. Your actions, your calmness, and your ability to maintain control were the loudest statements you could make. It was only when they crossed the line, when they took your patience for granted, when they pushed too far, that they felt the full force of what your silence meant. They may not have seen it at the time, but that was the moment you were no longer willing to tolerate disrespect or mistreatment. And that was when your silence turned into something much more powerful. The universe, in its own way, delivered the consequences of their actions, and they were left reeling, realizing that their misjudgment had led to their own loss. Your silence wasn't about retreating in defeat, it was about knowing your worth, understanding your boundaries, and recognizing that some things don't need to be fought for, they just need to be respected. And once that line was crossed, they understood that your silence wasn't a void, it was a powerful force that they couldn't ignore. In the end, it wasn't the words you said or the actions you took that made the difference. It was your silence that spoke volumes, and they finally understood its true meaning. The transformation that comes with distance. Your absence has become a catalyst for their transformation, even though they may not have realized it at first. When you were in their lives, it was easy for them to take your presence for granted. They might have thought that you would always be there, always available, always willing to overlook their shortcomings and missteps. But now that you're no longer part of their world, they're faced with the painful truth that your absence isn't just a void. It's a reflection of something deeper, something within them that they must confront. In your absence, they have no choice but to look inward and reflect on their actions. They can no longer deflect responsibility or avoid the reality of their mistakes. The distance you've created has forced them to face the consequences of their behavior, the missed opportunities, and the ways in which they failed to recognize your true worth. What they once overlooked or took for granted is now painfully clear to them. Your absence has become a mirror that shows them the areas of their life where they've been blind to the value of what truly mattered. But this period of self-reflection is not just about regret. It's a turning point for them, a moment where they must decide whether they will grow or remain stagnant. The universe has a way of making us confront our actions, our choices, and our shortcomings. For them, this time without you is a lesson in the importance of respect, appreciation, and understanding. They are learning, albeit through hard experience, that relationships require care, that people need to be valued, and that those who offer their support, love, and energy should never be taken for granted. You, even in your silence, are still teaching them. They are beginning to understand what it means to respect someone, not just as an idea, but as a living, breathing person with their own value, boundaries, and wisdom. They're learning how to value what is precious, how to appreciate those who contribute positively to their lives. In your absence, they realized that you were a rare presence, one that they didn't fully comprehend when they had it. Your energy, your strength, your insight, all of these things are irreplaceable, and now they are faced with the difficult truth that they didn't recognize it until it was too late. Conclusion: your divine purpose. As a chosen one, you are not just here to be understood. You are here to show the world that true strength lies in knowing when to stay silent, when to walk away, and when to allow the universe to reveal the truth. The energy you bring will transform lives, but only those who are open to change will understand it. Remember, their loss is part of their lesson, and your journey will continue to unfold in ways that they may never fully comprehend.